Hello everybody, welcome to this video on Tutorials Point. Today we are going to talk about a very important leadership PPT which is known as First Time Managers. Let's get started. Well, on the agenda today we will talk a lot in detail about how to become a good first time managers. Let's see what these sub-modules are. We will define how or what is a first time manager, understanding what the company actually expects out of these first time managers, role of a first time manager, certain behaviors which are expected out of a first time manager, building team spirit, building certain trust and confidence in your people and in the organization, leadership tips for first time managers. Well, this is all that there is in store for us today, and I'm very excited to teach you on this particular module. So friends, let's understand who is a first time manager. Well, research actually shows that less than 10% of people, when they have got promoted as a first time manager, are really not prepared for it. Well, high performers who have recently been promoted need to have certain skill set and certain managerial set. If they do not have that, trust me, as an individual or as an organization, it can have a complete disastrous effect. So as a first time manager, it's important when people are put in a position to manage others, it is usually reflective of their performance, of their work ethic and acumen for leading and helping people, both in a direct and an indirect manager. Being a first time manager can be challenging and overwhelming career transition for both the individual as well as the organization. And today in this module, we will discuss in detail about how to really lead with an example and how to become a great first time manager. Well, why do new managers fail? If an organization has promoted you as an individual or as a manager, it becomes important to understand why certain managers fail. So let's understand the reasons for the same. New managers do not establish goals. Well, it's very important that any person who does not set goal in his life becomes directionless. And it's important as a company, as an individual, to have directions and goals in life. A first time manager can fail if he has not established goals for himself as a manager and for his team that he is leading. A new manager can also fail if he does not communicate expectations. Now, expectations are always there, but a person cannot read a manager's mind, can he? So it becomes important to understand what the manager expects out of his team members. He needs to communicate the same to him. Don't give effective feedback. Well, as a manager, you need to give not only negative but also positive feedback in a very constructive and a nice manner so that people can respond appropriately, and it becomes important to give good feedback or bad feedback. Don't move from a doer to a leader. A lot of times when people are promoted, they continue to do things. Well, as a first time manager, you do not need to do things, you need to lead things, and that's what's important. Now, as a company, there are certain expectations that a company or an organization has of this first time manager. Let's see overall what is the big picture of the company when they promote a new manager. The company expects them to stay aware of the bigger picture. Now, any company has a good vision or a mission. They want the particular new manager to stay in tune of what is the big picture, what they exactly want them to do. They want them to make their own decisions. New managers should not be dependent on people, rather they should be self-dependent and also take decisions themselves. Implement new programs and methods. Well, as a new manager, you need to also be creative and also innovate new methods of doing things and not stick to the same old, boring, monotonous way of doing things. Inform your people about the company policies and procedures. It's important that a manager teaches effectively. So these are certain things that a company expects out of a first time manager, and that's not too big to expect. As a manager, you have certain roles and responsibilities. Well, we have understood that being promoted as a first time manager is a nice feeling, a positive feeling, but it can be very overwhelming at times. So let's understand, as a role of a manager, you need to set goals because they're important, not only for yourself but for your team and the organization as a whole. You need to be able to take decisions in a fair and effective manner. You need to also know how to manage change. Now, it's important to understand that nothing is fixed in life. Everything keeps changing, and as a new manager, you need to adapt yourself and be flexible towards these changes. As a new manager, you need to have effective time management skills. You need to prioritize your tasks between what is urgent and what is important, and effectively use your time to the best of capability. You need to have good communication skills. Now, I cannot really make you understand how important effective communication skill is for any first-time manager. You need to communicate in the best of your ability, not only verbal but also written communication as well as with your body language. You need to be a good motivator to your people. Well, as a first-time manager, you need to motivate yourself, so be self-motivated, as well as motivate your team members as much as you can. Nobody wants to work under a manager who is not motivated. It's also important that a new manager needs to delegate. Well, as a manager, there might be a lot of things that the person has to do, but you need to know when to delegate and to whom to delegate and what time to delegate, and that's important as a first-time manager. You need to also make sure that you train yourself as well as your team members. Important is to understand that you need to grow and learn as much as you can and make sure that people are trained under you. Well, these are certain roles and responsibilities of a first-time manager. Now, as a first-time manager, you have certain behaviors which is expected out of you. Let's understand what are these effective behaviors of a first-time manager. You need to have a lot of patience. As a first-time manager, you cannot be impatient with people. There will be a lot of people coming to you asking you for certain things. You need to keep your cool and not lose your temper. So have a lot of patience. Also be tolerant towards people. People will come to you for certain favors and tasks. You need to be tolerant towards your people. So never at any point of time lose your patience or lose your tolerance. You need to be very sensitive. As a first-time manager, you will have a lot of tasks to do. But at the same time, it becomes important to understand, be sensitive towards people, be sensitive towards their feelings and their emotions. As a first-time manager, you will also need to be very empathetic and sympathetic towards people. So do not ever lose your empathy just because you have to get a task done. Be concerned around people. As a first-time manager, you need to have a great sense of humor. Nobody likes working under somebody who is all the time very serious now. So it's important to know, have a good sense of humor, crack jokes, but not at the cost of offending somebody. And also as a manager, you need to have good decisiveness. So well, go ahead and take your decisions without leaving them on someone else. These are certain behaviors that any first-time manager is having or should have. Now, as a first-time manager, you need to build your team. You will be a leader of a particular team, and it becomes important how to keep your team spirit high and how to keep them motivated. So let's understand your duties as a team manager. Well, to build team spirit, you need to do certain things. Picture of the future, a vision for the team. A team will only stick together if they have a common goal or a common vision that they have to achieve. Hence, make sure that you give them a bigger picture. Be genuine towards people, as we have mentioned today. Be very caring towards people and be genuine and not fake towards people. Ask a lot of good questions and talk even about the hard things. Well, you might want to communicate on the easier aspects, but when you have to talk about something hard, you need to also make an effort to do that as a manager. Follow through on commitments. If you have given a commitment to somebody, make sure that you follow through your commitment. Never go back on your words. If you have promised something, deliver that. Let others speak first, because people love to talk, and when they talk, you should always listen to them. Face up to non-performing players. Now, in your team, you might have performers and you might have non-performers. Well, for non-performer people, you need to make sure that you motivate them, inspire them, and take them a level up from what they were before. Have fun, but not at somebody else's expense. And also be confident and dependable. As a first time manager, you need to show a lot of confidence, because only if you are confident, people will follow you, else they will not. Well, as a first time manager, you need to make a lot of decisions. So there will be a lot of tasks at your head. So let's understand. Be truly open-minded. Whenever you're taking any decisions, you need to have an open mind. So be adaptable, be flexible in your way of thinking. Avoid taking sides as much as you can. You might have biasness towards a friend or a colleague because you were working with them before. Well, as a manager for the first time, you cannot take sides, and also be aware of your own biasness. Don't let titles and prestige influence your decision making. There might be somebody who is very influential or powerful. They might want to tweak your decision making. Well, as a first time manager, it's a request. Please do not get offended by all these things. Take the decisions that you want to take without getting affected by power, status, ego, etc. Avoid absolute wordings in your decisions. It's important that once you have taken your decision, make sure you stick to your decision. Now, as a manager, you might question yourself that certain things that are needed in terms of decision making. Let's understand what are the questions you need to ask yourself if you have to take certain decisions. Well, ask yourself, do you have the sufficient information? Wherein, do you have all the relevant research, fact, figures, etc., which is required to take this particular decision? So you should have ample amount of research on that. What is the worst possible result which can happen? Because if you take this decision, something might happen which can work against you or in your favor also. So what is the worst possible thing that can happen? Ask yourself this question. Is it the right time to take the decision? Well, there is a right time and a right place which needs to be, make sure that you need to take control of that. Who is the best person to take the decision? If you feel as a first time manager you are not the right person to take this particular decision, show it or share it with somebody else who might be in a better position to take that particular decisions. Well, we also understood as a first time manager, it becomes important to build a lot of trust and confidence. People will trust you only if you trust yourself. People will look up to you only if you are confident yourself. So, well, it's important to build rapport, have a lot of people skill. Interpersonal skills are very important for a manager. So, go out there and talk to your people, not only about work, but overall about their own well-being. Take a diplomatic approach. At times, as a first-time manager, you might have to use logic instead of emotions. So be diplomatic and tactful in these particular places. Establish credibility, and that's important as a first-time manager. Engage in conflict resolution. Well, there will be a lot of conflicts when you are managing or leading a team of people. People will have difference of opinions, ideas, and they can get into a conflicting situation. Now, you as a first-time manager need to diffuse this particular conflict. So make sure as a manager you do that. Well, we also understood being communicating is very important, and effective communications, part of it is active listening. So what are certain tips and tricks to be a good or active listener? Responding appropriately is important. Pay attention to your listeners. You need to give your 100% if you want 100% back from them. So respect people, pay attention to them. Show that you are listening. Through your body language, you can nod your head, probably lean a little forward towards the person who's speaking. So show that you are listening. Provide feedback. And it's important to avoid judgment. When you're listening to somebody, listen with an open frame of mind. Do not judge them when they're saying something. Well, important to understand what are certain effective communication skills for a first-time manager. Present one idea at a time. You should not cloud other people's decisions by saying too many things at the same time. So stick to one particular communication at a time so that people do not get confused with your decisions or with your communication. Keep your communication simple and brief. At times, people might not understand jargon words. So keep it simple, keep it brief and to the point. In a communication, it's important to have a good voice, a good tone and a good positive body language. Respond to the emotions of the people. If somebody is emotional, you need to be emotional and empathetic towards them. Appreciate your listeners' concern and encourage the listeners to express themselves as much as you can. So communication is not one way, communication is a two-way process, and it's important as a first-time manager, you have two-way communication with your people rather than only one way. Well, I would like to make you understand certain leadership tips for a first-time manager. So if you have recently been promoted or if you are eyeing that managerial position, let's understand certain tips. It's important to keep learning and keep growing. As a manager, please start learning as much as you can. Please start growing as much as you can. People want a mature manager, not an immature one. It's important that you need to communicate clearly and effectively as much as you can. Set a good example. As a new manager, you need to be a good role model for people who would really look up to you. So set a good example by being a good role model. Encourage feedback, and we have also discussed how to give constructive feedback. Offer recognition. If somebody in your team has performed well or has given good performance, so it's important to also reward them and recognize them as much as you can. Be decisive as much as you can. Learn how to take your own decisions without depending on somebody else. Help the team see the bigger picture. Now, when a team is involved into the day-to-day task, they might lose focus of the bigger picture of the organization. So hence it becomes important for you as a manager to make sure that you align your team towards the bigger picture of the organization. Provide professional guidance. A lot of people will look up to you as a mentor, as a person who would advise them. So please make sure that you give a lot of guidance and advice and suggestions to your people. And last but not the least, be patient with yourself. Yes, you will make a lot of errors and mistakes. It's important to understand that you are only a human being. So be patient with yourself. Now, there are certain common mistakes which a new manager or a first-time manager can make. Let's see what these areas of concerns are. As a new manager, you might not delegate. You might want to do everything yourself without giving that particular task to somebody else. So as a first-time manager, delegate, delegate and delegate. As much as you can, give work to somebody else to do. Focus on the details rather than on the goals. So don't get so involved in a task that you miss out on the bigger picture or the bigger goal of the organization. Do not imitate others. You are your own person. Do not copy somebody else because everyone has their own leadership style. So do not imitate and be yourself. Making promises that you can't keep, well, don't always overpromise and underdeliver. Whatever you have promised, make sure that you deliver those promises. And holding back. Do not hold back with your emotions and logic. Try and speak out, try and communicate as much as you can. That will really help you to be a good first-time manager. Well friends, that brings us to the end of this module on first-time managers. We have discussed a lot in relation with how to be a good first-time manager, certain mistakes that you might make as a first-time manager, certain leadership tips which I have shared with you. Well, we hope you have enjoyed listening to this particular module as much as we have enjoyed teaching you. Thank you very much for listening to us, and bye-bye.